I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I'm delighted to have the privilege of interviewing Dr. Dawn Menge, a renowned author whose illustrious career has been highlighted by the Queen Vernita's educational series. With over 70 international awards to her name, including Hollywood Dreams Film Best Written Word Award, Dr. Menge has established herself as a leading authority in children's literature. With a PhD in education and years of experience teaching students with cognitive delays, Dr. Menge's passion for education and commitment to fostering a love of learning in children is truly inspirational. We thank the folks at Rushmore Press for helping us put Dawn in the spotlight today. Ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. And we are so happy to have you join us today, Dawn. Thanks for your time.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be.
That is quite a display around you, and that is only a small fraction of your work. You're quite a busy lady, quite a prolific writer, are you not?
Well, I'm having a great time writing the books because the stories are based on my life and my adventures. And Queen Vernita was actually named after my grandmother.
Wonderful.
She was a businesswoman. She had a credit union, and she was a world traveler. So
Great. Now, how many books are there in the Queen Vernita series so far?
there are 14 published and 3 more on the way.
Wonderful. For the folks at home, tell them the premise of the Queen Vernita series.
Well, Queen Vernita lives in the kingdom, the land of quails, and she travels around her kingdom to the different areas and learns about the flora and fauna and the culture of the different areas in her kingdom. And so it's actually based on my travels. Like I said, it's named after my grandmother. Everybody in the books is after a family member, a friend. I have some of my students in the books. I've won several awards from the Conquering Disabilities Film Festival because I have disabilities in my books. And now it's actually over 80 awards that I've won.
Wow. Wonderful. Well, they're well deserved and they're hard earned because you've spent a lot of time and made quite an investment in your career. And it seems to be paying off because you're getting a great deal of recognition. So again, tell the folks at home some of the different types of adventures she has. I know they're based on your own adventures, but she encounters everything from alligators to all sorts of things, right?
Yes. Well, this one was one we did as a family. These are all our family members.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on a train ride from Williams, Arizona to the Grand Canyon. And then afterwards, we went on the Polar Express. So this is actually my grandson who fell asleep in Santa's lap. So it's all about our adventures on the train. This is my grandson looking out the train. And it's used, a lot of my books are used, the Grand Canyon. This actually, my 2 sons were sitting on the edge of the cliff with their feet over it. Of course, we were having like a heart attack, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a ledge right underneath them, and they were laughing at us because they weren't in any danger at all. But it's based on that, and it's pre-K to 1st grade. And this is the one that I really love. Is I went to New Orleans, and we went into the bayou, and I held a baby alligator.
Gotcha.
And we went on a jet. And it was raining and pouring and lightning. And we actually had to hide underneath the moss covered trees to wait for the lightning so we didn't get electrocuted. And then it wasn't even land. It was just like a pile of moss. And he gets out and he starts making this noise. And we're like, what is he doing? And he had this fish in his hand. And the alligator actually came up out of the water, trying to find the page. And, I missed it. But he came up out of the water and they were like 5 feet from us, the alligators. And then he pulled out a little ice chest and brought a baby alligator and had us hold it. And I was showing the picture to someone. They said, well, you know, they bite. And I said, oh, I didn't even think about it, you know, because it was just so fascinating being out there and having all of nature right there. So I've had people like buy this book when they were going to go to New Orleans. And they read it before they go. And so they know a little bit about the culture, the plantations. This one is based on California, the coastline of California. We went up the coast and it has tide pools and caverns. And I do a lot of things with Story Monster magazine out of Tucson. And I've had people buy the book because they were coming to California and they were going to go up the coast, and they wanted their children to read the book as they were going up the coast.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's what I love about your books, is that you do blend real life with a little bit of fantasy involved as well. And I think that really connects with children, captures their imagination. The illustrations are great as well. Tell us a little bit about who you work with to get these books illustrated.
Well, I started with Bobby Switzer, and then I moved to someone I actually found her. Live in a small town in Wrightwood that I grew up in. And so every year I do, they have the authors contest that they have. So I'm their featured author, and I go and listen to the children who have had their books published. And I met my author there. And what she does is she takes actual pictures from my trips. This is one of the books I'm working on. I went to New England over my fall break, and we saw all the beautiful colors. And I have a book. It's going to be called Queen Vernita's. Queen Vernita finds more colors than a box of crayons.
Nice.
And one of the lighthouses we saw in Maine, and there was only 6 of us on the tour, and these were some of her grandchildren. So the people that are with me and experiencing it, I include them in the book. So she's in the book and her grandchildren. And this is one of the ladies. We went, of course, there were leaves everywhere. So we went and threw all the leaves up. And then this is one of the ladies. And so we're going to talk about the fall colors. And we went to a maple farm. And this was actually our guide. And then they showed us how they make the maple, and then so the maple syrup. And so this is her at the maple farm. So they're all real people and real adventures. And if you go on my website, you can see the pictures from the adventures and how the illustrations are made. So she put several different pictures together to make the illustrations. So each it's based on 12 months of the year. So each month has a new subject, and then it has 7 facts for each of that subjects. So they're very educational and very adventuresome.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell the folks at home what your website is.
It's queenvernita.net, and Facebook Dawn Menge 1, Instagram Dawn Menge, and Twitter Queen Vernita. And I have a lot of things on Rushmore Press.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Now I can see your educational background shines through a lot on these books, because it seems like you use every moment you have during your travels to become a teachable moment, right?
Yes, it's hard not to. As a teacher out there, when you go do something, you think, okay, what am I going to take home? You buy things to have lessons. But these are actual. So this is one that I had. This is one of the ones that won for the Conquering Disabilities. And this is actually my brother. He helped me. He's an astronomer at JPL. So we wrote it together, and he is Sir Heathy Bean, the astronomer. And when he was little, he's 10 years younger than I am, I called him Heathy Bean. So now he's Sir Heathy, but he's teaching this. And this is actually my friend's son. And so he's in the book. And then I have Jeremy, who had Down syndrome. And let's see if I can find a page. And then he's in this book. So I have included a lot of education on disabilities. But what I do is I promote that they're living their lives and learning and enjoying. And so part of whatever, so he's learning about astronomy, but then we put some facts in here about Down syndrome. And I have some on autism and visual impairments. And so we don't focus on the disability, we focus on the accommodations that are needed for them to explore or to learn something.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's kind of like streamlining, if you will, or mainstreaming the disabilities, so children become familiar with them, that if they encounter a person who has autism or Down syndrome, it's not something strange or odd, it's something that they're familiar with.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they want to learn about astronomy or the beach, or they do all the things that we want to do. They just have to do it with a little more help.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Of all the books you've written, do you have a favorite?
Everybody asks me that. No, because everyone is different. I've traveled with different people. A lot of them are about my family. And so I have a friend I grew up with in Wrightwood who moved to Kona. He married a woman from Kona. I've actually written 2 books, which I do not have with me, but they're on Kona, Hawaii. And I've gone there probably 6 or 7 times. So I could say that's maybe my favorite place to go.
Mm-hmm.
It all went, and my son got married on the beach there, and we all went and spent his honeymoon with him. But I was able to write 2 books on just Hawaii. And so I think that's my favorite destination. But each book includes family members and different trips. So they're all my favorite.
And it's a great excuse to travel. If I'm going to see the Maine coast, or if I'm going to go to Hawaii, or if I'm going to explore the Pacific Coast Highway, right?
In fact, I'm going to Italy in July. I had a goal over the pandemic because we were teaching at home. I decided, and we couldn't do any more events, out. I was doing a lot of traveling with the events. So I started doing a lot of interviews online, and I had a goal of doing 100. So I got it to 8. But I met someone from Jamaica who moved to Italy, and now she's having an author event in Italy this summer. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to teach the Italian children about storytelling.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you do many events where you read your books to children, or do you use the books as a tool when you're teaching children? Tell us a little bit about how you incorporate what you've written into your work.
I do a lot of events. I do a lot of other things. I joined a lot of organizations, so I do a lot of things with them. I do a lot of events where we do readings, or we make a craft. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she comes with me, and we actually have just a craft just made out of construction paper, and they put stickers on it. They can color it, and the children love doing it. They make the crowns, and they're walking around the events with the crown on their head. And it's a great way to advertise Queen Vernita and get them adventuresome. But yes, I also do book reviews for Story Monster. I also judge. I think I have 5 literacy contests that I judge now. I'm on the board of these libraries, and we're going to do a lot of things. I'm coming up with RIF of Southern California, and I work for San Bernardino County Schools. So we're all combining that to do big events with the children and bring books to them. So I do a lot of different things now, not just being an author or a teacher. I also teach new teachers at Cal State San Bernardino. So I teach behavior management and curriculum there on top of teaching in the classroom during the daytime. And I also mentor 3 new teachers that we have, keeping them, motivated and keeping our teachers.
Wonderful. You're the busiest lady in show business, which is always good. You can never be too busy. I'd like to give you another job. What do you think about producing these as a video series, or as a film, or a live animated or animated film? Have you thought about that at all?
Oh, yes. Yes. I actually have 2 screenplays, which have won, I think, 7 awards right now, all over the world. And I'm having another one written for my Conquering Volcanic Islands. And yes, I would love to do that.
Well, it sounds like you're in the right direction, because that's what I do with my screenplays as well. I submit them to the contests and to the festivals. And if they do well, you keep your fingers crossed that somebody's going to see it or read it and want to produce it. But yes. I do think with all your imaginative characters, and with all your wonderful locations, and with all of the information that's packed into your stories, I think they'd be a terrific educational series and entertainment series for young people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Italy is now on your destination. Any other places you're thinking about to bring Queen Vernita?
Well, I'm finishing up New England. I'm working on one in Death Valley. I have a friend whose grandmother went 100 years ago. So then I went. So we're going to mirror her trip and my trip, the 100-year difference to Death Valley. And I'm going to, of course, do one in Italy and Rome and whatever else I see there. So there's endless amounts.
Exactly. And I'm a total New England file. I spent a lot of time in Maine and Bar Harbor, Maine. So I can't wait to look at your New England book, because for me, that's my favorite region, that it's just filled with such, the people look like they have stories worn on their faces from the weather, and the houses and the rocky coastline. I feel like that's one of the most dreamy places I go to enjoy.
Well, that was my first time there. And we actually went on a photography trip. So we stopped at covered bridges and I think we saw every leaf there. And there was a friend of mine that she was a traveling OT and she lived with me, but she actually was from Maine. So then we spent a couple of days with her and I think she drove us all over Maine, every
Yeah.
inch of it. So
So
yes, it was.
you probably had quite a bit of lobster then if you're driving all over Maine.
We saw Stephen House. We actually saw Stephen King.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's quite an unusual sighting. I think it's more unusual to see Stephen King than it is to see a moose in Maine. I've never seen a moose in Maine. I've seen them out west, but I've never seen them in Maine.
I just released a book on Wyoming too. And
that's where you find your moose.
He was a moose, and nope. In fact, my friend, she took us on an ATV up and around to show us to find us a moose. And she had a little keychain and she stuck it in the tree and she's like, here's your moose. Because we couldn't.
You didn't see one? Oh, I saw a lot of moose when I was in the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone just last year, as a matter of fact. So I guess it depends on the season, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another thing. I mean, you could, like you said, the possibility with your series is endless. You could do every national park. And
Yes.
I think that would be of great interest to people because it could be informative about the national park. It could be beautiful with the illustrations. And then you have Vernita's adventures as well while she's in the park. So there we go.
I just got snowed in. We had a big blizzard, the blizzard of 23. And I was snowed in for 4 days. So I was taking pictures of the icicles and the snow. And so everybody's like, well, you should write a book. And I'm like, okay. So that's I'm going to write on.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I'm glad you find inspiration in everything. Your joie de vivre, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is contagious and it's great. You truly enjoy your work and that's reflected in your work. I think to do great work, you have to really love it, and you do. The Queen Vernita series is wonderful. You can find out more on Dawn's website. And are there other series? I know you've written so much. Are there other series of books you've written besides Queen Vernita, or the others are more standalones?
Actually, I started another one. It's called Dragon's Breath, and it was based on something that happened to my life where someone was harassing me. And so it's about a dragon and what she's doing to the kingdom. And it's kind of like a moral of not hurting people when you're jealous. And so that actually has been read all over the world. It really was received well because it's kind of a fairy tale. And so I just finished the second in the series. Tentatively, I'm calling it Precious the Baby Dragon. So the king and queen find an egg and they raise this baby dragon to be nice and kind. And I'm just starting the illustrations right now. So
that sounds wonderful. And kids love dragons. I always say you put a dragon in a story, a kid will read it. We've been talking to Dawn Menge. She is a prolific writer of children's stories. She is the woman behind the Queen Vernita's educational series. The books are imaginative. They're wonderful. They'll take you places where you want to go, or maybe you're planning to go, such as Hawaii or the New England coast or the Pacific Coast Highway. Great places to explore with your children by picking up a book. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.